Hey everyone, President Trump gave a big press conference yesterday about the war, about epic fury. And as usual, a lot of what he said was misunderstood or taken out of context. There's a lot of people who initially thought that he was saying the war is over, we're done, we're moving on to the next phase of this, as though suddenly, after all of the talk of going full force and how the worst is yet to come, what we've been hearing from the Israelis and from Secretary of War Hegseth, suddenly Trump was putting the brakes on it. What does this all mean? Earlier in the day, he was giving a different talk where he said that we're going full steam ahead. So what does it mean? Is he looking for an off-ramp? So I decided to go back to the press conference and watch it carefully. And what we're going to do in this video is we're going to go through a number of excerpts of that press conference to see what President Trump was actually saying about the state of the war. It's very important because we are at a critical stage. We are at a kind of turning point in the war for a lot of reasons I've been laying out in recent videos. But what we're going to do is we'll go through these excerpts. I'll make some brief comments. And then at the end, I'll sum up where I think we are in this and what I think President Trump was actually saying yesterday. Now, before we do that, please go over to Israel365news.com. Just type that in as one word, Israel365news.com. It's a news website written by Jews and Christians who are writing from a biblical perspective. In this day and age, you cannot rely on mainstream media to bring you truth about what's going on in Israel, what's going on regarding Israel in the Middle East. You really need to seek it out. And the team that I'm part of at Israel 365, we have this great news website, Israel365news.com, and you can click the subscribe button in the top corner, and you can stay in touch and stay informed and get our newsletter so that you'll know exactly what is going on in the Middle East. All right, here's the first clip. And in this clip, President Trump, hold on a second, let me find where it actually starts here. In this clip, President Trump lays out the scope of the damage from the opening days of the war. So let's take a look.
From Iran, which was a big moment in history, in my opinion, and the great success we've had in Venezuela and all other places. Every place we've gone, we've had tremendous success. But while we're doing all of these things, we're achieving major strides toward completing our military objective. And some people could say they're pretty well complete. We've wiped every single force in Iran out very completely. Most of Iran's naval power has been sunk. It's on the bottom of the sea. It's almost 50 ships. I was just notified it's 51 ships. I didn't know they had that many. Didn't last very long. And these are fighting vessels. They're meant to fight, but they're not meant to fight against us. We continue to target Iran's drone and missile capabilities. Their drones are way down. Their drone manufacturing's been hit starting today. We know all of the places they manufacture the drones, and they're being hit one after another. Their missile capability is down to about 10%, maybe less. We're also hitting where they make missiles and where they deliver missiles. We've struck over 5,000 targets to date, some of them very major targets, and we've left some of the most important targets for later in case we need to do it. If we hit them, it's going to take many years for them to be rebuilt, having to do with electricity production and many other things. So we're not looking to do that if we don't have to. But they're the kind of things that are very easy to hit, but very devastating if they are hit. We are waiting to see what happens before we hit them. We could take them all out in one day, but it's all resulting in a 90% decline in various things, but in particular, Iranian missile launchers and 83% drop in drone launchers. As you know, the drone launchers are pretty well shot, but we're at over 90% decline in the Iranian missile launchers, which is very hard to reproduce and very hard to get. And usually what we were able to do through great equipment, a lot of smart people, as soon as they sent a missile up from a launcher, we were able to knock out that launcher within a period of 5 minutes or less, accurately right on the noggin. So now we have low-cost interceptors effectively combating Iranian drones, and our B-2 bombers recently dropped dozens of 2,000-pound bombs to destroy missile launchers all over Iran and buried deep under Iranian soil in many cases. The soil was no match. And we're also annihilating the manufacturing base that the regime uses to build drones and missiles at a rate that nobody thought was possible. We're knocking them out. We know where they all are. We're knocking them out very quickly. We're ahead of our initial timeline by a lot. I would say that we probably would not have thought after a month we'd be here. In addition to the fact that we've taken out the leadership twice and maybe three times. And we, as you know, we want to be involved. We don't want another president that maybe wouldn't be willing to do what I'm willing to do for the good of the world, for the good of our nation, to be stuck with a situation in 5 years or 10 years from now. So we think they should put a president in, or the head of the country in, that's going to be able to do something peacefully for a change. They've been doing this for 47 years, killing people for 47 years, whether it's the barracks or even the SS Cole where they were involved. Very strongly, they always denied it. But where they were very strongly involved, and all of the people that died through the roadside bombs died and are right now walking around with no legs, no arms, a face that's been so badly damaged. The Iranian regime has been attacking Americans and spreading.
Okay, so that was the initial part of the press conference, right? He lays out in great detail all of the damage that's been done, and how basically that means that we're almost done. They've got nothing left. They've got almost no missile capability left, no manufacturing capability left, and we've also taken out we've taken out their leadership, and we don't want to be stuck with a situation where these guys are still in charge and there's some other president who's not going to do anything about it. Okay, so that's initially. So he does say that we're ahead of schedule and we're almost done. I think his exact words that led people astray was he said it's pretty much done, right? We're and then he laid out what he meant again with how their capabilities are no longer really in place. Okay, and then he explained why the United States decided to strike when it did. And this was a big controversial issue about was it the Israelis, and is America being dragged in by Israel, and whose war is this? And so that's what he was really getting at in this next clip of why the timing of the strike. So let's take a look at that one.
The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco, so involved, that I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us. And if you notice, they did something which was very foolish, very stupid, I would say. They attacked their neighbors, and their neighbors were largely neutral, or at least weren't going to be involved, and they got attacked. And it had the reverse effect. The neighbors came onto our side and started attacking them, and actually quite successfully. If you look at Saudi Arabia, you look at UAE, Qatar, and others, but they were strong and they were smart, but they got attacked. Nobody, when I first heard it, I said, no, somebody made a mistake. There was no mistake. UAE had over 1,000 missiles shot at it, knocked them almost all down. On the very first day I came down the escalator in 2015, I said, quote, I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons, and all I'm doing is keeping my promise. Think of that. That was in 2015. I said it. It was a threat then, and a much bigger threat now, but no longer a threat, not for a long time anyway. We want to keep it that way. As we continue Operation Epic Fury, we're also focused on keeping energy and oil flowing to the world. And I will not allow a terrorist regime to hold the world hostage and attempt to stop the globe's oil supply. And if Iran does anything to do that, they'll get hit at a much, much harder level. I will take.
Okay, so there you have saying that he felt that there was a preemptive strike coming based on all the intelligence he was given, and therefore the time had come to act. And there was this is something that was, when it was originally said by Marco Rubio last week, you probably remember this, there was all this uproar that, that it's because the Israelis were going to attack first, and that was going to draw attacks on America, making it seem like Israel dragged America into a war. But he's being very clear about it being a very short-term tactical decision, that he saw that with all the American military buildup and the way the negotiations were going, and they weren't really going anywhere, that the Iranians would try a preemptive strike, and therefore he chose to strike first. Okay, then in the next clip that I want to show you, what Trump did was he addressed concerns about Iran threatening global oil shipments. Okay, so let's take a look at that one now.
But when the time comes, the U.S. Navy and its partners will escort tankers through the strait if needed. I hope it's not going to be needed, but if it's needed, we'll escort them right through. And we have the greatest mine-sweeping ability. We have the greatest ships, and all of the, we know exactly where they're placed. We'll get them out of there very fast, but we hope we don't have any of that. And again, if they do that, if they play that game, we're going to hit them at a level that they have not seen before. So we're winning very decisively. We're way ahead of schedule. Our military is the greatest in the world, with the greatest equipment and the greatest people in the world. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Iran's a very powerful country.
Okay, so there's Trump, also pledging that that the United States is going to protect global shipping, right? And that they're not going to allow the disruption in the oil prices, because a big piece of Iran's strategy here, remember, we said this since the beginning of the war, Iran doesn't think it could beat the U.S. militarily, but it wants a spike in oil prices. It wants chaos in the region. That's why it was attacking its neighbors. It wants escalation. It wants it wants this war to become more and more unpopular and last longer and longer, so that Trump wants to end it prematurely, and they can remain in power, even if in a weakened state, and then keep their heads down until the Trump administration is over. That's been their strategy all along. It's still their strategy today. All of their behavior confirms that is their strategy. Okay, then there was the next clip. Trump was asked how soon the war could be over. And this is where, like I said, this turned into a whole controversy about what did Trump mean when he said the war is ending. Because at the beginning of his remarks, he said we're pretty much done. So now we're finally into the part of the press conference where it's no longer a prepared speech, but he's getting asked questions. Have a look.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
but soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. But two levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about. So it's obviously been very, very powerful, very effective.
Okay, so his answer really was, hey, look, we're going to, basically there's going to be regime change. That's really what his answer turned out to be. Very interesting, because of course he's not committing to any timeline, but it doesn't sound like, from what he just said there, that, they said, are you talking about days? He said, I think so. But look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. So he's not saying, I'm going to stop while they're still in power and start negotiating. What he's saying is, we're a lot closer to done than you realize, because there's no one left to run things. We're in charge. Basically, we're very close to a situation where there's simply nobody left from the regime, and we're just going to step in. That's what I think that he's implying here. Then we get to the next clip, where a reporter pressed him on whether the war is already won or just beginning, because we've heard that from Secretary of War Hegseth. Oh, we're just getting started. This is just the beginning, right? That's the messaging we've had out of the Pentagon and also out of the Israelis. And Trump himself said that in the previous days. So the reporter it's a good question. Which is it? Has it just begun, or is it just about over? Here's Trump.
Thank you. Mr. President, you've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared
Well, I think
for
you could
this war
say
to
it
last
both.
for?
It's the beginning. It's the beginning of building a new country, but they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft equipment. It's all been blown up. They have no radar, they have no telecommunications, and they have no leadership. It's all gone. So, you could look at that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further. But
Did you hear that? And we're going to go further. We could end it now. We could already call it a success. Look, you've degraded them. They're not so much of a threat anymore. You've slammed them down hard. What's happened has already been successful, but we are going to go further. So everyone who was saying that this press conference meant that the war is over, he just said we are going to go further.
the big risk on that war has been over for 3 days. We wiped them out in the first 2 days. When you think about it, it's incredible. We wiped out a big Navy, very powerful Navy. These were ships. These were serious ships. These were ships that you buy when you want to win battles. They're all on the bottom floor. The sailors are all running off their ships. They refuse to get on the ships. The Air Force is gone. Everything's gone. The missiles are down to a trickle. The drones are down to probably 25%, and they'll soon be down to nothing. We'll have where they manufactured the drones are under fire as we speak. They're being hit. So the rest is going to be determination as to my attitude, along with the people in the Trump administration, what we want to do. Thank you.
Okay, very clear there. Again, when he says that the war is over, he's not saying we're stopping prematurely. He's basically saying it's just about over because the extent of the damage has been so great, they've been so degraded that there's almost no fighting ability left on the other side. That's what he meant by that quite clearly. Okay, next clip. There was a question about regime change and who might lead Iran next. And here's what Trump had to say.
Do you have to take him out? Does he have a target on his back?
You mean the new supreme leader? You mean the son?
How can there be an Iran with
Well,
another
I don't want to say that, but I was disappointed because we think it's going to lead to just more of the same problem for the country. So I was disappointed to see their choice.
Thank you, sir. You've said you have someone in mind to be the new Iranian leadership, if not the Ayatollah's son. What are you looking for in that person? Are you looking at someone internal, given that you just said that their leadership has been decimated?
I like the
and
idea
wiped
of internal and eternal, come to think of it. But I like the idea of internal because it works well. I mean, I think we've proven that so far in Venezuela. We have a woman, Delcy, who has been president of the country, very respected, she's doing a great job. And it's, no disruption. We had, as you remember, Iraq, where everybody got fired. The military got fired, the police got fired, the politicians got fired. There was nobody. And you know what they turned into? ISIS. And we don't want that. We don't want that. So I would like to see people that are inside go. Now they talk about the son of the Shah. They talk about other people, but, hasn't been there in many, many years. We have a formula that's been very good so far, and I think it'll continue to be good. The relationship is extraordinary with Venezuela, smart country. We've taken out 100 million barrels of oil. It's right now in Houston being taken care of and made so beautiful. And you have to see this at work. They have it's brought to the refineries. It's being refined in Houston, which is made exactly for that product. And so far, but it's 100 million barrels of oil, and now they have another 100 million barrels coming. And it's like a partnership. We're getting along so well with them. It's great for Venezuela, and it's great for the United States.
Okay, so that's Trump praising the Venezuela option, right? And saying he even says we have a great, we have a great system here. We have a great, we have a great way of doing this regime change thing. And Delcy's been wonderful, and she's very well respected and very popular. No, she's not. Delcy Rodriguez is Maduro's number 2. The same, what they did in Venezuela was they kept the same criminals in charge and just removed the top guy, and then the Americans are in there holding a gun to their heads. And he wants to duplicate that. He's being very open. He wants to duplicate that model in Iran, which means he wants people from within the regime to hold things together. That will increase stability. The problem is there's a big difference between the Venezuelan regime and Iran. Iran is an ideological Shiite Islamic regime. That means that the people in the regime, the IRGC, are Shiite Muslims. And especially when you get into the lower ranks, they're even more ideological. Maybe some of the top people are kind of cold, technocrats who were making a buck and were pretending to be Islamic. But the truth is they're actually quite ideological, the people in the regime. Whereas in Venezuela, you're talking about South American Marxists. They're not religiously ideological. They're much more like mobsters who are interested in money and power. So it's not necessarily a model that can work in Iran. Also, the Iranian regime slaughtered tens of thousands of its own people. Everyone in the regime is implicated in that. They also have a transnational network of drug trafficking and human trafficking and proxies all over the world. Venezuela had nothing like that. That also needs to be dismantled. Those money flows need to be dismantled. So what Trump is hoping for in Venezuela is not necessarily so transferable, so applicable to, to what is going on, to what's going on there in Iran. Okay, then the next question was, Trump was asked about like what victory would look like. Okay, so let's go to that clip now.
You said earlier that we've already won in many ways, but we haven't won enough. What do you consider enough? What's your baseline?
Where they're not going to be starting the following day to develop a nuclear weapon, where they'll look at that man and some other people from the administration and say, all right, we're not going to do it. They were not willing to say that. And when Steve called up and he said that to me, I said, well, here we go. Let's do it the hard way. But the hard way, I think, is probably the easy way. When basically I can see that they will no longer have any capacity whatsoever for a very long period of time of developing weaponry that could be used against the United States, Israel, or any of our allies. We have great allies in the Middle East, great countries that are allies. And they were staying out of it until they got hit. Someday they'll have to do a story. Why did he do that? Why did they do that? But they were going to hit them. If I didn't hit them first, they were going to hit our allies first. I believe, upon information and belief, but I believe that he was going to, they were going to take over the Middle East. They were looking to take over the Middle East. Now, had Operation Midnight Hammer not taken place, that was definite, because they would have had a nuclear weapon within a matter of weeks. But that took place. That was a setback. But look at the number of missiles they were able to buy and make over the last 6 months. And those missiles were aimed at various countries. And when you look at over 1,000 missiles shot at like UAE, they were looking to take over the Middle East. We got there first. We're lucky. I'll tell you what, the Middle East and those countries, very rich countries, are very lucky that I was president instead of somebody else.
Okay. So there, what do you see in that clip? That was Trump saying, look, what does victory look like? That they have no ability to rebuild, no ability to threaten. Okay, so obviously that means that we're not done yet. They're still firing missiles. They're still firing cluster missiles at Israel. So again, it makes no sense to me that he meant that he's looking to end the war imminently. And now, okay, final clip. This one is really interesting. It's the way he ended the press conference. He was asked about helping the Iranian people and the cost of the war. Okay, let's take a look at that.
Thank you, Mr. President. You promised the Iranian people you would help them, but it sounds like you're willing to end this fight after your military objectives have wrapped up. Isn't that a betrayal of the people?
Will I help them? I'd like to, if they can behave. but they've been very menacing. You know, they're great people. They have an amazing population. It's amazing, smart, brilliant, energetic. They have a great, I'd love to help them, but they have to be in a system that allows them to be helped. And right now they're in a system that only allows failure. And I don't want that. And I want a system that's not going to be attacking us. We want a system that can lead to many years of peace. And if we can't have that, we might as well get it over with right now. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, as of today, there have been 8 U.S. military fatalities associated with the war in Iran. How many American deaths are you willing to have in this war?
Well, as I said before, when you have conflicts like this, you always have death. And I was at Dover yesterday. I met the parents, and they were unbelievable people. They were unbelievable people, but they all had one thing in common. They said to me one thing, every single one: finish the job, sir. Please finish the job. And I'll leave you at that. Thank you very much, everyone.
There you go. I think that really says it all in terms of making sure that we understand what Trump was and was not saying in this press conference, right? There he is quoting the families who he met of the fallen American soldiers when he met them at Dover. And he says, they all said, finish the job, Mr. President, finish the job. And Trump said, I'm leaving you with that. In other words, this isn't looking for some premature off-ramp before the regime is totally decimated. That's not what it is. He kind of wants to have his cake and eat it too, because he's hoping for a Venezuela type situation. He's hoping that the guys near the top really just want to survive and remain in power a little bit, and they'll play ball with him. He doesn't realize you have an IRGC. It's hundreds of thousands of people. They are ideologically Shiite jihadist Muslims. They're not necessarily just going to, for pragmatic reasons to stay in power and keep making money, play ball with the Americans. So the Venezuela model, I understand why he wants it. Forget about the moral issue of throwing the Iranian people under the bus with that model, but I understand why he wants it. And he also said there, like, they've got to get their act together, the Iranian people. He's giving them the opportunity to overthrow the regime, but at the same time, he wants stability. He doesn't want everything to break apart and create an Iraq-like situation. But bottom line on this whole thing, with everyone was saying yesterday, that, oh my gosh, Trump is saying the war is basically over. No, he's saying that the progress has been rapid, that the other side is getting to the end of the line in their ability to fight back. And we're looking for people to work with so that we can have a more stable transition to something that is post the Islamic regime. That's what he's saying. But what were his finishing words? The families of those American soldiers who were killed said to him, finish the job. And Trump ended the press conference by reiterating that point. Finish the job. All right. So that's what I think is going on here. Let's all take a deep breath. There's a lot left to this story, and we're going to keep bringing you updates every single day. God bless you.